Hello and welcome to the dungeon. I'm your host Rob. In today's video we're going to be looking at one of my favorite subclasses from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, which is the Oath of the Watchers Paladin. And in general I really like paladins. I think that they're very fun characters to play. I really like how all the different oaths have these different tenets, and it gives you a lot of really cool roleplay ideas for those characters. And I really think that paladins are one of the classes that have matured and developed the most since the early days of D&D. Back then, the whole lawful stupid thing was definitely a thing, and paladins, while cool and interesting, were also very likely to get your party killed because they were just inflexible and were more concerned about being morally correct than, winning the fight. And, that might be good for you, but when you get all your party members killed, pretty soon they don't like you making paladins anymore. But I think that, you look at things like the Oath of Vengeance and the Oath of Conquest Paladins. These have a very different, distinct feel. I think that Oath of the Ancients and kind of like that Protector of Nature type has a very distinct feel. Again, very different from the traditional Oath of Devotion and Oath of Redemption types. And I really like the Oath of the Watchers because it gives me this kind of almost like the the creature fighting against the Lovecraftian horrors type of feel. And it's not just specifically the Lovecraftian horrors, that's probably a bad example. But if you look the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer and some of the others that have come out from Tasha's, you have more of that extra planar deep space horror type of influences. And I really feel like this is the guy who fights against that stuff. So, just for his tenets, we've got Vigilance. The threats you face are cunning, powerful, and subversive. Be ever alert for their corruption. So I like that this doesn't just sound like a physical danger, right? It talks about how they're cunning and they're subversive, and you have to be alert for their corruption. This doesn't sound like the guardian at the gate who's just oh, monster coming, time to fight it. He's the guy who's looking for the corruption of his society and the moral decay of wherever he is, right? And he also probably a physical guardian as well, because heck, he's still a paladin, right? But I really like that mental aspect of the character, where it seems like he's not just, a big tough guy, guarding the door. He's also rooting out the secret machinations of the enemy, and that just has kind of a different feel to it. So, anyways, number 2, loyalty. Never accept gifts or favors from fiends or those who truck with them. Stay true to your order, your comrades, and your duty. I find it interesting, though, what would happen if one of your comrades does truck with fiends. You have to be loyal to your comrades, it says, but you also have no use for those who deal with fiends. And, that could be an interesting situation. Maybe you just leave it up to a coin toss. Heads, you get to live. Tails, you meet Mr. Swordy, and then we see what happens. I think that could be kind of bad. I'm not suggesting that. Do not go around killing your party members unless they deserved it. And they did. Let's be honest. They did. Number 3, discipline. You are the shield against the endless terrors that lie beyond the stars. Your blade must be forever sharp and your mind keen to survive what lies beyond. And this is why it kind of reminds me of the Lovecraft stuff. Because even though Lovecraft had a lot of extra dimensional stuff too, like the Dreamlands and Lang and all that stuff, and even Cthulhu's city is half in our dimension and half in a different dimension. But a lot of this stuff was just things that came from deep space, from beyond our galaxy and stuff. And it specifically says you're the shield against the endless terrors that lie beyond the stars, and it does have a very Lovecraftian feel. I also like that it says your blade must be forever sharp and your mind keen to survive what lies beyond. Because a lot of the dangers of the Lovecraftian horrors were actually the dangers to your sanity. And this really does feel like something that's going to be fighting against that kind of stuff. So already, I like the feel of the character. I start getting a mental image of who this guy's going to be. And just, in general, I find that the really good characters I've made. Like everybody else, I've had some really great characters. I've had some really bad characters that just didn't work. And I've had a lot of characters in between. But over the years, I've found that the characters that were the best, not just the funnest, but the best and that everybody else in the party really liked were the ones that I usually had like a really strong mental image of who this person was. Not just, what their class was or what their abilities were going to be, not what spell selection I necessarily took. And yeah, that stuff's all important. I spend most of the time on this channel talking about those kind of choices. But the character like that you envision in your mind and you know who this person is, usually is one of the funnest characters to play, at least in my opinion. And just from like the tenets of not just this oath, but all the paladin oaths these days, I think it's very easy to get an image of who I'm going to be as a person. And that just automatically helps you to make a better character when you know who and what you are. Anyways, moving on to the oath list, spell list. That was a long time just to talk about the tenets. I think the spell list is kind of a mixed bag. There's a lot of stuff that's very thematic, maybe not the most powerful, but there are some real gems on this spell list as well. So, Paladin level 3, you get Alarm and Detect Magic. I don't think any of these or either of these are like exceptionally good, but Alarm's very useful. If nobody else in your party has it, it's good that you have it. It's not bad. At level 5, you get Moonbeam and See Invisibility. Again, both pretty decent. See Invisibility is one that I don't usually use that much, but when I need it, I need it. So, I'm glad to have it as a spell on my spell list. Level 9, I get Counterspell and Non-Detection. Now, Non-Detection, again, is very circumstantial, but Counterspell is awesome. And yeah, you probably have a wizard or a sorcerer or a warlock or somebody who has Counterspell already, but just the fact that you could be like a full plate wearing like great sword or sword and board or whatever, polearm, whatever it is you're using, just some like big beefy frontline bruiser just smiting infidels and creatures from beyond the stars. And then you also got Counterspell to help shut them down even harder. And personally, I just really love that. I think Counterspell is an amazing spell. Level 13, Aura of Purity and Banishment. Aura of Purity is another circumstantial spell. I really wish it was Aura of Vitality, but Aura of Purity probably fits the theme better. And, Aura of Vitality is level 3. But Aura of Purity is a really good spell for what it does, but again, all the conditions that it, removes are pretty, a lot of fights you're just never going to need it. Banishment, again, is hit or miss. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but just be aware that you may not be able to land your banishment as easily as like a warlock or a wizard or a sorcerer could, because you may not have prioritized charisma. You might have gone strength first, and that just makes it harder. You're not going to have things like hiding spell like a sorcerer might have had to help them, give the target disadvantage to help them land that crucial or miss that crucial saving throw. You don't really have that. But you might have a good charisma, by the way. Not saying you don't, right? Maybe you decided to pump your charisma up, or maybe you came back to it at higher levels. I'm not saying banishment is terrible by any means. I'm just saying that it might not be as reliable on a paladin as it would be on a pure caster, of course, right? But that being said, it's a very thematic spell. Still a pretty solid choice. Nothing wrong with that. Level 17, Hold Monster and Scrying. Hold Monster, basically a lot like Banishment, same problems, but same advantages as well, very strong. Scrying, very useful way for getting information. This is a 17th level character though, by the time you've gotten these spells, and most campaigns just never really get that far, sadly. But, you never know. I think that they're both pretty solid choices. I think the divination spells in a lot of campaigns are just really underused. At least they are at my table anyways. I wish people would use them more often. A lot of times I have like puzzle and investigation scenarios for my players, and then they just, never think of like using contact to the plane or anything else to try to get help, So, tip for players out there, don't be afraid to use divination spells if you're stuck. Anyways, I think it's a decent spell list. It's not the best out there, but having Counterspell is awesome. And some of these spells are decent too. And of course you are a paladin, so it's very possible that you will never cast a single one of these spells ever, and just use all those spell slots for smites. So, in which case it doesn't matter to you if your spell list is good or bad. Moving on to your channel divinities. Like all the other Paladin O's, you get two. One's a turn ability, which I think is pretty decent. The other one's not bad. It's very defensive. I don't know that it's really it's no Oath of Vengeance or a Sacred Weapon, that's for sure. But it's not the worst thing, that's for sure. So first one, Watchers Will. You can use your channel divinity to invest your presence with a warding power of your faith. As an action, you can choose a number of creatures you can see within 30 feet of you, up to a number equal to your charisma modifier, a minimum of one creature. For 1 minute, you and the chosen creatures have advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. So first thing is to notice, it just says you can choose a number of creatures you can see within 30 feet of you, up to your charisma modifier. But it also says those chosen creatures and you. So I don't think you count as one of the creatures for the number of targets, right? So if you only had, say, 14 wisdom, you can only hit 2 targets. I believe it's 2 targets plus yourself. At least that's how I read it. So that's okay. You could hit quite a few party members, maybe even all of them, right? It is your action, but it is advantage against 3 different saving throw types. And sure, intelligence saving throws aren't the most plentiful, but charisma is not bad. Wisdom are very plentiful. So giving advantage to maybe your entire party potentially against wisdom saving throws could be a really big deal, especially at low levels when you don't have aura of protection yet. Once you do have aura of protection, and anybody within 10 feet of you gets your charisma bonus, and if they're making saving throws with advantage, they're probably just never going to fail. So that's not bad. It is your action to use, and that's really the big drawback I see in it. But again, I don't think it's the worst thing out there. It could be the difference maker in a fight, so it's not like it's awful. Our other ability is Abjure the Extraplanar, and this is where we can try to turn things. You present your holy symbol, and each aberration, celestial, elemental, fey, or fiend within 30 feet of you that can hear you must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the creature is turned for 1 minute or until it takes damage. And basically just has to try to run away from you, etc., just like all the other turn abilities. So obviously it breaks on damage, but I do like the fact that it affects a large number of creature types, because yes, it is circumstantial, just like all the other turns, right? Like turn undead only affects undead, right? They're all very circumstantial. But I mean, listen to this list: aberration, celestial, elemental, fey, or fiend. That's 5 different creature types, which include a lot of different creatures. And it's not just a target creature within 30 feet, it's each and every one of those things within 30 feet of you. So, it is pretty strong. Again, very circumstantial, but very strong under those circumstances. Anyways, level 7, Aura of the Sentinel. Personally, I think this ability is amazing and is one of the main reasons to take this class, in my opinion. So, when you and any creatures of your choice within 10 feet of you roll initiative, you all gain a bonus to initiative equal to your proficiency bonus. At 18th level, the range of this aura increases to 30 feet. So why do I think this is good? Well, mostly it's just because a lot of combat in 5th edition comes down to things like the action economy, right? So if your side gets more actions than the other side, you're probably going to win. That's not always true, of course, but it's a good general rule, right? So if you're able to act before all your enemies can even go, you have a chance to cast your control spells, like a wall of force. And if there's, maybe there's 10 enemies you're facing, and they each have 2 attacks around. Suddenly the wizard casts a wall of force, cuts them in half. Now you have to kill the first 5. Once they're all dead, you can drop the wall of force. Now you kill the other 5. And so instead of facing like 20 attacks around and maybe being overwhelmed, now you're facing 10 around. It's a lot more manageable, right? Maybe he has like a hypnotic pattern. He's able to take out like half the group that way, whatever, right? Maybe it's just as simple as you and your allies get to attack, and you get to kill 2 or 3 of them before they have a chance to attack you back. And now each one of them that's died, that's a couple of less attacks coming your way. Either way, one of the best ways to just cut down on the enemy's number of actions is just to kill them, or to act before they can act. So I think this is really, really good. It also stacks with a lot of other things, like say the alert feat, or maybe you have someone like, say like a Gloomstalker Ranger or a champion fighter or somebody else who gets to add passive bonuses to their initiative from, like, say, remarkable athlete or from whatever the Gloomstalker ability is called, right? Or they get their wisdom to their initiative. You know, now you could be having guys, especially, like, let's say you've got a +3, 4, even eventually a +6 bonus, you know, on, let's say, Gloomstalker Ranger with a nice dex. Maybe he's using a bow a lot, right? So he's got, let's say, 20 dex, 16 wisdom. He's got a +8. Maybe he takes alert. He's got a +13. You've got a +6 bonus from your proficiency because you guys are high level. And he's rolling with a +19 to his initiative. He's just going to be, like, killing guys before they can even blink. It's like the Flash out there, you know? So I really think that this is just a really, really good ability. And it just keeps getting better. Whether you put points into, like, say, charisma or not, whether you want to spend your ability score increases on your strength or feats or whatever, it's just always getting better anyways because it's leveling with your proficiency bonus. And just going to be a quick story, hopefully I tell quickly. But in one campaign I was in, actually it was the first 5th edition campaign I played. So this is when I was playing my champion fighter. And one of the other guys in the party was playing a barbarian. So of course he got to roll initiative with advantage, and I had remarkable athlete. And then as we got to high levels, we both ended up taking the alert feat at some point. So at this point, you know, we're rolling like, he's rolling like something like a +8 or +9 to his initiative with advantage. And like I said, you know, it could be even higher than that for some classes. But that's what he was rolling, you know, advantage with a +8 or a +9 or whatever it was. And, you know, I'd usually be like +8 or whatever I was, +7. But, you know, still not too bad. And a lot of times the two of us could, like, get on top of a key enemy, and between, like, him just, like, raging and just cutting the guy down, or me action surging and just attacking, you know, between 6 and 8 attacks around it, depending what level range we were in, and just, like, cutting people down. A lot of times these fights would be, like, half over before the enemy even got a chance to act. And it was probably no coincidence that after 3 or 4 fights like this, or 3 or 4 weeks of fights like this, I should say, all the enemies suddenly started rolling really, really high on their initiatives. Almost like they had a huge passive initiative bonus built in, just so they could survive that first round of combat and maybe get to do something. You know, instead of suddenly we'd roll initiative and the barbarian would be like 27, you know, and then I'd be at like 21 or whatever. Well, suddenly all the enemies, instead of being at 12s and 14s, they'd all be at like 22s and 25s, you know. But it did make the combats a little more challenging. So anyways, that was just a colossal waste of time there. But my point is, going faster allows you to just strategize better, take advantage of enemy positions, set up defenses, cast crowd control spells, do whatever your party needs to do. The fact that it's everybody within 10 feet of you, not just yourself, I think it's just an excellent ability. And I really kind of see these clownish situations where the paladin kicks in the door in the dungeon, and every single door is just the entire party just stacked up on the paladin. No, we're all within 10 feet of him, in case there's monsters in that room. Oh, there are monsters? We're all rolling with that initiative bonus. But yeah, I think it's a great ability. And it's really one of the things that really makes the class to me. So anyways, level 15, Vigilant Rebuke. Whenever you or a creature you can see within 30 feet of you succeeds on an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma saving throw, you can use a reaction to deal 2d8 plus your charisma modifier force damage to the creature that forced the saving throw. I don't think this ability is phenomenal, but it's also not terrible. And maybe it just didn't have anything to do with your reaction on a regular basis, you know? If you had to make a saving throw, you pass, boom, I just deal some damage back to them. And, you know, the fact that any of your party members can do that within 30 feet of you makes it pretty decent, at least. I don't know that 2d8 plus your charisma is really a lot of damage by the time you're level 15. But, you know, like I said, if you didn't have anything to do with your reaction anyway, or if your allies didn't have anything to do with their reaction, then why not? Could be worse. Imagine if like 4 people in your party all make that wisdom saving throw, thanks to your other abilities, including your aura of protection, and then all 4 of you use your reactions to deal back your 2d8 plus charisma bonus and damage. that suddenly starts being pretty significant. So again, not the greatest ability, but by no means the worst, you know. Level 20, Mortal Bulwark. You manifest a spark of divine power in defense of the mortal realms. As a bonus action, you gain the following benefits for 1 minute. You gain True Sight with a range of 120 feet. You have advantage on attack rolls against aberrations, celestials, elementals, fae, and fiends. Already 2 good abilities. When you hit a creature with an attack roll and deal damage to it, you can also force it to make a charisma saving throw against your spell save DC. On a fail save, the creature is magically banished to its native plane of existence if it is currently not there. On a successful save, the creature can't be banished by this feature for 24 hours. But, I mean, that ability is a complete just game changer. You could be like just fighting armies of demons or devils or whatever practically single-handedly at that point. I think that ability is pretty awesome. And again, you have advantage to attack against them, so you're probably going to land that hit and then force them to make a charisma saving throw. And one of the best parts of this entire ability, once you use this bonus action, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest, unless you expend a 5th level spell slot to use it again. And again, I like this because now I have the option of reusing it. And with a lot of these other Paladin level 20 abilities, you don't really have that option. It's just, you know, you got to use it once, boom, it's done. You got to take a long rest now. So the fact that you could use it twice is, you know, kind of nice. Again, it's a level 20 ability. Most campaigns never get that far, but you never know. I think that it'd be fun to use at least once or twice if I got there. I would definitely be looking for opportunities to use it. In general, though, I just think it seems like a really fun class. And like I said, I like a lot of the themes behind it. I like a lot of the character ideas I get for it. I like the idea of, you know, this guy who's not just fighting against like physical danger, but also like spiritual or mental dangers and fighting against the corruption. Like a lot of the Lovecraft type stories where all these just different cults corrupting their societies and doing a bunch of crazy cult things, you know? And it's not necessarily that these cultists are like powerful enemies as individuals, but you know, as a collective group, they're a danger to their entire societies in which they're found, right? And I just like the idea of like hunting down these terrible cultists and bringing the sword of virtue and truth to their lives. I just think that would be a fun character to play. So anyways, those are my thoughts on the class. I think next week we're probably going to be looking for probably another multi-class video. I haven't done one lately. And I've got a few ideas for different subclasses I'd like to try out. So we'll be taking a look at something like along those lines. But anyways, that's everything I have for this week. Feel free to like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, of course. And most importantly, leave me your comments in the comment section. I love reading everybody's comments. And maybe somebody's already played this subclass, because I haven't yet, obviously. And nobody I know has played it yet. But I just think it looks interesting. And I'd love to read about your stories about like, oh, we have one, or I'm playing one right now, or I got one, but he's only level 4, and I'm thinking about doing this or that, or whatever, right? And I just think that would be pretty cool. So anyways, those are my thoughts. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.